The awestruck, fantastical fly by the seat of your pants and take a ride on a journey that is truly mad, brutal, violent, and octane-fueled insanity. Match that with amazing performances by Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth, and I'm telling you, it's a must-see. Unfortunately, the film hasn't done that well in theaters, but that's usually what happens to movies that are actually worth your time, especially when it comes to a Mad Max film. I'm sure that later on, it will be appreciated much more. However, for the filmmaker, this film should be on your list to see immediately. It's not just for the action sequences and ways to shoot violence that will absolutely captivate your audience, but for the cinematography and genius design of center point focus. But, some more on that later. Spoilers ahead. So, now it's decades after the apocalypse. Australia is a radioactive wasteland, and the green place of many mothers is one of the last remaining places with fresh water and agriculture. We start the movie where raiders have discovered the green place, while two children, Furiosa and Valkyrie, are picking peaches. This brave young Furiosa tries to sabotage their motorcycles, but the raiders capture her as a prize for their leader, Dementus, of the biker horde. In a race across the desert, Mary, Furiosa's mother, pursues them to the horde's camp, killing all but one of the raiders, who brings Furiosa to Dementus. Furiosa mortally wounds the last raider before he can reveal the green place's location, which is the only saving grace she can manage. Dementus plans to get the information from her, but decides to do it for the next day, after a massive sandstorm subsides. Mary sneaks into the camp and rescues Furiosa, but Dementus tracks them down. When the motorcycle begins having issues, Mary stays back to buy Furiosa time, and escape gives her a peach pit to remember her by. But Furiosa refuses to leave Mary. Mary kills off as many as she can in this rocky corridor of death, but then gets captured and tortured. Furiosa, hearing her mother's screams, goes to try and save her, but can't do anything against these monsters. Dementus forces Furiosa to watch the mother's crucifixion. Dementus, after killing Mary, adopts an unwilling Furiosa as his daughter, hoping she will lead him to the green place. Sometime after, Dementus is riding with his crew in badass fashion when they run into a strange man with a metal rod sticking from his head, covered in white paint. The war boy explains there's a citadel with everything Dementus and his crew could ever want or need. They take the war boy and ride over to the Citadel. There, Dementus attempts to siege the Citadel, another settlement with fresh water and agriculture. However, the horde is repelled by the war boys of the fanatical army of Citadel warlord, Immortan Joe. This forces Dementus to change course, using a Trojan horse-style method to capture Gastown, an oil refinery that supplies the Citadel with gasoline. This is the space where we truly see how Dementus cares so little for his own as he sacrifices the lives of one of his allies' groups. Gastown is taken easily, and then Dementus calls a negotiation with Joe. At the peace negotiations, Joe recognizes Dementus' authority over Gastown and increases its supplies of food and water in exchange for the horde's physician and Furiosa, who has tattooed a star chart to the green place on her left arm to find her home. Afterward, Joe imprisons Furiosa with his stable of wives inside a vault. After Joe's son, Rictus, shows an attraction towards her, Furiosa devises a plan to escape, and one night, Rictus breaks Furiosa out of Joe's vault to assault her, but she slips from his grasp using a wig made from her own hair and disappears. Disguised as a mute teenage boy, Furiosa works her way up the ranks of Joe's men for over a decade. She helps build the War Rig, a heavily armed supply tanker that can withstand raider attacks in the lawless wasteland. She plans to escape by hiding on the rig when Joe sends his top driver, Immortan Joe, on a supply run. Disillusioned by Dementus' callousness, his lieutenant, the Octobus, goes rogue and launches an air assault on the rig. His motor flyers slaughter the rig's entire crew and destroy Furiosa's hidden motorcycle. Furiosa tries to carjack the rig and drive home, but Jack easily stops her. However, he recognizes her potential and offers to train her to escape if she helps him rebuild his crew. Furiosa becomes Jack's second in command and is promoted to Praetorian. She and Jack bond and resolve to escape together. This is a special moment that I hadn't expected from Furiosa after seeing Fury Road, but it really does fit well. Most romantic or even friendships between a man and a woman in films seem forced or unrealistic, but this one makes a lot of sense and is a really good dynamic to study. Anyways, they see an opportunity when Joe decides to attack Gastown, which Dementus has mismanaged to near ruin. Joe orders Furiosa and Jack to collect weapons and ammunition from the bullet farm, an allied mining facility. However, Dementus ambushes them when they arrive. Furiosa and Jack barely escape and Furiosa's left arm is injured. Dementus chases them down and eventually gets them. He then tortures Jack to death right in front of Furiosa, who just keeps having loved ones get killed like this. Furiosa escapes her chains by severing her own injured arm and sacrificing her star map to escape. Out in the desert now, completely alone, that's when a lone man watches from afar as Furiosa struggles back to the Citadel. is one of the coolest stamps of Max you can have, and literally the theater erupted when it happened. But once she arrives back at the Citadel, she and Joe's aide, the People Eater, form a strategy to avoid a trap planned by Dementus. Instead, Dementus himself is lured into a trap at the Citadel, and the War Boys crush the Horde in a 40-day war. Having lost her path home, Furiosa shaves her head again, replaces her arm with a mechanical prosthetic, and pursues the fleeing Dementus. After an extended chase, Furiosa subdues Dementus in the desert. There's a great performance here where Chris Helmsworth gets to grovel and explain himself. You can really see that he's just numb after the death of his family. Nothing matters except to find a way to excitement with shock and awe, but that is getting harder and harder to find for him. He did what he did because he had no other choice within his own head. He did what he did because it was the only way he could survive. So what does Furiosa do after learning all this? She imprisons Dementus at the Citadel and uses his living body as fertilizer to grow a peach tree from her mother's seed. Joe promotes Furiosa to Imperator and gives her a command of a new war rig. She meets Joe's 5 breeder wives in the vault where Joe once held her a prisoner. The night before another supply run, the 5 wives hide in Furiosa's rig. Like I said, this film is an epic story with so much intensity and violence and madness that you have to see it simply for the spectacle. The acting is phenomenal, the coloring is incredible, and the story is twisting and intriguing. For the filmmaker, the study of this film has a really unique point with center frame focus. This is where the filmmaker designs the shots to place the focal point of the shot in the center of every frame. What this does is relax the eye. Instead of having to constantly look around the screen to find the interesting point, Furiosa has that point placed dead in the center every time. This allows the mind to truly fall into the story. The truth is, every time you cut, or you force the eye to move drastically or move too much, or you cut away to black or the next scene, you are subconsciously reminding your audience that this is not real and they are watching a movie. The goal is to get them to ignore the cuts, to forget the switches, and to focus on the story. Furiosa's cinematography style do this expertly, like Fury Road, where you are enthralled by the visuals and don't have to do much work with your eyes to see the good parts. It's a genius way to film a movie and get your audience engaged. So for the film lover, especially a Mad Max fan, this film is yet another masterpiece. It's fun, it's engaging, it's insane, and it stays true to the story. No, it doesn't have much of Max in it, but it doesn't need to in this case. The world of Mad Max is a bit clearer now, and that is only going to make it better for the next time that we see Max in the Wasteland.